All right. Thank you. Mhm. All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's episode of Teen Talk Live. We had some technical difficulties, but I am so glad to be able to join you tonight. I am your host, Ann Dillard, and I am really glad you're here. And thank you for hanging out and waiting for us to come on because we have a really interesting topic to share with you tonight. Again, I'm your host, Ann Dillard. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and you are joining us on Teen Talk Live, where we share knowledge and strategies that transform the minds and lives of teens and those who love them. So tonight I have a special guest and colleague. Her name is Damaris Karanja. Did I say it right, Damaris?
Yes, you did. You got it.
Damaris Karanja. And Damaris is she specializes in working with people with eating disorder and body image issues. And so tonight she's a nutritionist and she's going to tell you some more about herself. And tonight she's going to share her expertise with us. So if you know anybody who can benefit from this, please like and share this live, because we're going to be talking about eating disorder, and especially eating disorders in teens. That's a topic that a lot of people don't really want to touch. And so tonight we are going there with Damaris. Welcome, Damaris.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. So tell my audience some about yourself.
So, as Anne said, I'm Damaris Karanja. I am a registered dietitian, nutritionist, but I'm also a licensed professional counselor. So I approach this topic from two sides. In fact, I was a dietitian for many, many years. And then I realized there's much more to eating than just knowing what to eat and what not to eat. So I went back and I got my clinical counseling degree to help me really understand what is really going on behind people's eating habits, the eating disorders, because it's a lot more than just about food. So it helps me really understand the deeper issues around food.
Absolutely. And for some of my viewers might know, but I've struggled with eating issues starting in my teenage years. And so this is something that is really near and dear to me. So I am so glad that you're here and to help parents, especially parents of teens, to look at this a little closer.
Right.
So when we think about eating disorders and we think about body image issues, first of all, looking at eating disorders, that's something that's kind of a taboo subject to talk about, isn't it?
Yeah, actually, most people don't really talk about eating disorders because it's a lot of people have a lot of shame when it comes to having an eating disorder, so they hide it. Other people actually don't want to get help because they are really obsessed with being thin, for something like anorexia. So they won't even say they are struggling. So a lot of people really suffer in silence. It's such a taboo. There's such a stigma. And then there's also the other complication of most people do not think that people of color actually suffer from eating disorders. So a lot of people think it's a white people disease, illness, but it does not discriminate.
Right, and particularly white woman's disease, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so, and I'm not white.
Right. It does not discriminate. Even men have eating disorders.
Exactly. And we're talking about teen girls in particular, but I've worked with teen boys who also have eating disorders.
Correct. It doesn't know gender, ethnicity, socioeconomic class. It's like it affects everybody, and it's a pretty huge issue.
Wow. So let's talk about what are some of the different types of eating disorders there are, and how do they present themselves?
Yeah, so there are several major types of eating disorders. And before I talk about that, I'll just define what is an eating disorder.
Yes.
And basically, it's a dysfunctional relationship with food. And it's a serious mental illness, just like cancer or asthma or any other illness. Is actually an illness, a mental illness that can be diagnosed.
Right.
Right. And there are several types of eating disorders. The most common one that people know about is anorexia nervosa. So anorexia nervosa is when people restrict their food and restrict their calories a lot. So when someone has anorexia nervosa, they have this fear of being fat, and they are really obsessed with being thin. So what they do, a lot of times they really restrict the amount of food that they're eating, but others also eat, but they engage in behaviors like they purge, they'll probably vomit, or they will over-exercise. Some people use laxatives or diuretics to get rid of the calories that they ate. So there's a huge issue of restricting, and it has actually one of the highest mortality rates and suicide rates when it comes to anorexia.
Wow.
So it's a pretty serious mental illness.
And that's not common knowledge.
It is not. And actually, most people who have it, probably people give them compliments. Like, you look thin, you look nice. But they don't realize these people are actually malnourished. And when they look in the mind is so distorted such that when they look in the mirror, they think they are normal weight, when actually they are probably just really malnourished and very skinny.
Wow. That's incredible.
Right.
Okay, so that's anorexia.
That's anorexia nervosa. Then we have bulimia. So the thing with bulimia is actually people eat a normal amount or larger than normal amounts, and then they go on and they get involved in, we call them compensatory behaviors like vomiting, purging, fasting, or exercising.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, the main difference between anorexia nervosa and bulimia nervosa is that in bulimia, people might be a normal weight. So they're eating either normal amounts or excessive amounts, but then they purge or they exercise or they use laxatives, but they don't become extremely thin like in anorexia nervosa. So they might be a normal weight, but they are engaging in like the purging, over exercising, use of diuretics and things like that so that they can maintain a normal weight. So that's bulimia.
Wow.
Then we have a binge eating. So binge eating is where people consume really large amounts of food, but they do not engage in anything that's gonna get rid of those calories. So a lot of times when people have binge eating, you'll find people are extremely overweight. Mm-hmm. That's one of mostly morbidly obese. A lot of them will be pretty overweight. A lot of them will eat large volumes of food. They also eat in secret a lot of times because they eat very, very quickly. There's a lot of shame around that. So they eat in secret a lot of times when it comes to binge eating disorder. But that's one that is really not diagnosed as much because people just think, oh, the person just likes food. But they don't realize it's an underlying psychological issue that is actually driving the person to use food as a coping mechanism. So that's binge eating.
And so with that person, if somebody will say, well, they don't eat that much. How come they're so large?
Right.
Because a lot of the eating is done in secrecy.
It is done in secrecy. Actually, most people say, I just eat a little bit, or I just eat what everybody else is eating. But a lot of it is done in secret. So sometimes people in the middle of the night, we wake up and have a binge. They call them the binge episodes. You have an episode of a binge episode where they eat large amounts of food, and it's people don't see that when it
right. Mm-hmm. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, is binge eating, or is all of these different eating disorders characterized as compulsive overeating?
Binge eating is the one actually that is binge eating and bulimia. Those two can be characterized as compulsive overeating. Because in anorexia, they are restricting. They're really not, they're eating very, very, very little. They're actually starving themselves in anorexia. When it comes to bulimia and binge eating, there is this compulsion to eat. And the example I like to give is some people have a compulsion to go shopping. So that's their compulsion. Some people have compulsion to exercise. But when you have an eating disorder, you have this compulsion to eat and you cannot stop yourself. You know you need to stop, but you cannot stop yourself to eat.
Right.
And that's why they compensate.
Right. And so when one of the things that I learned in the different programs that I've been in is that eating disorder is really not about the food.
It is not about the food. Okay. So food is actually just the coping that they use to deal with whatever is going on. So eating disorder, actually nobody knows exactly what causes eating disorders, but there are several factors that can increase the risk. So for one, we have biological factors because they have been shown that they do run in families. Mm-hmm. So if you have family members with eating disorders, it's a biological component where a child might have an increased risk of having an eating disorder. Then we have environmental factors. A lot of people that I see coming with, especially with bulimia or anorexia, they have had a traumatic event happen in their past. So it can be a sexual assault, it can be any type of trauma. It can be even extreme poverty, whereby they feel like their life is out of control. So this is the only one area that they feel they can control. So they use food as a way to get just a little bit of power back. Again, we have the psychological. It's very much connected to depression and anxiety. Actually, it's like an anxiety disorder. So we see these two, eating disorders and anxiety and OCD, where people are obsessed, obsessive compulsion, they go hand in hand. So it's not really about food. It's about feeling in control. It's about coping with unwanted feelings that they really don't know how to cope with. It's really, food is just what is used as a tool.
Right. And that is so true. So how is it that as a nutritionist, how is it that sometimes when you're sad or when you're feeling these excessive intense emotions, what is it that triggers you to want to eat?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because food is comforting. Okay, so food is something that you eat and you feel comforted. It's like we talk about comfort foods.
Yes.
Foods that you eat and you feel better. So the compulsion, actually, it's like a reward system in the brain. And it works the same way as substances do, like drugs, the way it does. So for example, if somebody is addicted to drugs, they will have this need or desire to use so they can actually cope with their feelings. It's the same thing. They're used to coping, somebody is used to coping with feelings with food. So the brain is used to that. And they actually get a type of a high. You know, and people are not actually addicted to the food. They're addicted to the feeling state, the state of feeling good after the meal or after the purge, whatever that is. That's the addiction, where actually the addiction is, the feeling good state of doing that.
Wow. You know, it's something, because I work a lot with teens, and, you know, sometimes parents bring teens in because they're concerned about their self-esteem and their body image and things like that. And sometimes I listen to how parents talk to their teenagers, you know, I don't know what's wrong with them. Why don't they just stop eating and things like that? And sometimes we could do more damage than anything, right?
Right, we do. And actually, parents have a big role to play when it comes to body image. But a lot of times some of the things we say them very innocently.
Yes.
Okay, we really don't know like we're doing any harm. So for example, we might be talking about our own bodies. So I might be saying, I don't like my tummy, maybe I'm fat, I'm gaining weight. So I'm talking about my own body in a negative way, but my kids are picking that up. So then they start thinking about their own bodies. So a lot of parents are innocently doing that, but they don't know the damage that they are doing when it comes to negative body talk about their own bodies. Again, they might just be saying a child is getting chubby. So innocently, they'll make comments like that. But I can't tell you how many teenagers I see who are so distressed and they come in and say, oh, my mom saying my face is chubby. Or my mom saying, my tummy is getting big. So those small messages that are very innocently said can transpire into an eating disorder.
And that is so true, because even parents innocently commenting on their child's development. Like, I had a client once, and she was developed more in her breast, and her mom would make comments about that. And so she didn't realize how that was damaging, because in secret, that made this girl self-conscious and really turned in on herself because of her the body image that the negative body image that she was developing.
Right. And then a lot of parents, what I see is they get concerned right before puberty, when a child is just about to hit puberty, all the way through adolescence, because there's this growth spurt. Okay. So when this growth spurt happens, parents don't realize it's a normal growth and development. The kids are going to gain weight, they're going to look different. So some parents actually panic and they think the child is becoming overweight, but they don't realize it's a normal stage of development. And again, in the teenage years, that's when the child is very, very self-conscious. So any little comment is going to do a great deal of damage, any little negative comment. So that's the time to really focus on, building their self-esteem. I usually say, don't even talk about weight in the house. Body weight, how people look, any comments about that should not be discussed in the house, because again, the kids pick up on that and they internalize that.
So I mean, not discussing it, that would be ideal. But realistically, what can you do? Because, I remember going through my weight transformation, and I'm like, okay, I can tell when I get self-conscious and I talk about it, or I look in the mirror, or I make a face, or there might be days when I felt really, really good. And I'm like, yeah, now this is what's acceptable. So what, as parents, if we can't talk about it because it's gonna scar or hurt our children, what can we do? What are some of the things that we can do?
So the first thing that we can do that is really important is to celebrate our own bodies. So if I am celebrating my own body, I'm being a role model for my kids. So it doesn't mean that I'm not concerned about health. So I'm modeling healthy behaviors. So for example, I'm eating healthy. I'm teaching them how to exercise. We're exercising together as a family. So I start celebrating my own body, and I'm not making any comments about my body size or my, clothes I'm wearing in front of when it comes to kids being around. So the other thing is to teach kids to listen to their own bodies. So that's when it comes to food and eating, because again, a lot of damage is done when we restrict food. Okay. So when we make food an issue, it becomes a big issue.
Yes.
So sometimes we think we are doing a good job by restricting food, but actually we are doing more harm, because what we are teaching them is we can trust them with food. So when they are older, they know they can trust themselves with food. So that's the message we are sending. So just teaching them to honor and trust their hunger and their fullness. So this is where we talk about the division of responsibility. So for parents, my job is to provide the food, to provide healthy food, but it's the child's job to decide how much and what to eat of the food that is provided. So no forcing, no restricting, because actually that backfires really big time. So that's a big one. The other thing is complimenting kids on other things other than looks. So an innocent, I can tell you how many clients come in and they say their parents say, you know, you look really good. You look like you've gained some weight. It's a positive compliment. You look really good. You look like you've gained some weight, because we were concerned the child was, you know, headed towards an eating disorder. But that was a trigger. So what that does is the child starts to think, or the teenager starts to think, oh my God, I've gained weight. It's a positive compliment, but it's body-based. So giving compliments that are not related to looks or weight, so things like you're smart, you're capable, you're strong, those are compliments that has nothing to do with the body weight or the shape. Again, we talked about not talking negatively about your own body is really, really important. The other thing is not talking negatively about other people's bodies.
Yeah, because you know, we watch TV and we criticize.
Yeah.
Right.
We go to the mall, you know, we are flying, but we are commenting about other people's bodies. So actually we are sending a negative message to, whether it's a teen, that you never want to be that person because you're going to be judged. Again, we are planting seeds of dysfunctional eating. So what you want to do, because sometimes the kids will bring up the negative talk about other people's bodies. So what you want to do as a parent is to redirect that into something else. Just redirecting is really key when it comes to that. And you're teaching them to be very non-judgmental about others, then they'll be non-judgmental about themselves at the same time. So the other thing is really to teach them what beauty is. Because we have this culture where beauty actually is based on the white ideal.
Yes.
Right? But again, if you look at the people of color, our genetics, we come in different sizes, we come in different shapes. We are not the same body structure as the majority culture. So just as we teach our kids to celebrate their history, the Black History Month, and all the history of the people that came before us, we need to teach them to celebrate their body types, celebrate who they are, and not try to be like their friends or like the majority culture who probably have a different genetic makeup. So just celebrating that, their culture, and knowing people come in different sizes, people come in different shapes, and we cannot all be the same body. That's really key as well.
So we have a comment here, and thank you all for joining. Pastor Brunton, I'm so glad you're here. Hey, Cassandra, I'm so glad you're here. And Joseph, thanks for being here. And Joseph said, great topic. It sounds very challenging because parents could be concerned about our own body image and may be concerned that our children may follow our unhealthy habits. So we want to mention it. At the same time, we don't want to mention it because it might be harmful.
That's a really good question. And I really see that a lot in my office, where you see a parent coming in because they have struggled. And now they're starting to see the same struggles with their child. So, and they're like, I need to protect them now before they follow my footsteps. Okay. So the first thing I have to say, one of the things that I say when people come in, especially with kids or young teenagers, is we look at the history. We do something called a genogram. We look at the grandparents. We look at the parents. We look at the child. Okay. So first of all, we talk about the genetics because genes play a big role.
Yes.
So if my family genealogy, we come in big bodies, and I'm expecting my child to be this different person, then I'm putting a lot of pressure on them because I would say more than 50% is genes. Okay. So the other thing is, it doesn't mean that you ignore it, but it's modeling. So I'm not, for example, if I'm struggling with weight, I can model. For example, we can do exercises as a family. We can the food I'm buying, that's a parent's responsibility. So what kind of food am I buying in the house? Because chances are the child is not going to buy their own food. What am I providing? Am I modeling? So you make it like a family affair to be a healthy family, to be healthy, all of you. Okay? So it's not, the focus is not on weight, but it's on health. Because remember, health is just, weight is just a number. And there are so many people who are very, probably not the normal weight, but they're healthy. There are others who are really skinny and we do the screening and like their cholesterol is way out of the roof. So it's looking at health overall. What does health really mean? And what are we doing as a family? So providing healthy meals in the family, you know, and creating a culture of exercise is really, really important. And also a variety of meals such that we are really experimenting on new foods. Because I'm eating the same food that I know has made me, you know, be unhealthy where I am I experimenting with new foods? So
that's really important. And I would say, just self-disclosure, I know when I was eating in an unhealthy way, I was passing on a lot of that to my daughter. And so consequently, she grew up to, you know, gain a lot of weight. But what I realized later on was I was teaching her inadvertently how to deal with her emotions.
Right. Because again, remember, you're the most important example.
Exactly.
Right.
So, and it's not about food, right? It's about something so much deeper and so much bigger.
Right. It's really not about food. So, for example, that's a good example you gave. It's like, how am I modeling coping with negative emotions? So again, what I'm modeling is what my kids are going to pick up. Okay. So modeling is key. If I feel sad, am I going to go for a walk or am I going to grab some ice cream? If I feel lonely, how am I going to cope with that? So again, you're modeling those social and, you know, positive coping skills as well.
That is so important. That is so critical. So for the parents who are watching, and if you are joining us, please share this video out, because this is an important topic that's not really talked about much. And I think it's important that we talk more about it, because one of the things that you said is that so many people die because of eating disorders. Yep. That we don't even think about that, and it being one of the largest mental health issues. And I am like, okay, I think depression is the largest mental health issues. And I know depression and eating disorders, they're connected in some ways, but when should parents be concerned?
So parents, actually, eating disorders, a lot of them manifest themselves from as early as age 8. So, right. So from 8 to around early adulthood, early adulthood, that is when actually people are diagnosed with eating disorders.
Wow.
So right, it can start pretty early. So some of the signs that the parents can watch out for is when a child is obsessed with their look. So they may be obsessed with how much they weigh. That's a big red flag.
Yes.
Okay. So they may be talking negatively about, like, I hate my body. I hate this part of my body. So they start identifying parts of their body that they don't like. That's a red flag. Doesn't mean they have an eating disorder, but that's a red flag, something you start watching out for. So the other thing that you're going to see is phobia. That's really also connected with eating disorders, where kids or even young adults or teenagers have this phobia of certain foods. So you see people have a phobia of any carbohydrates or a phobia of any food that has fat. So if you see people having that phobia, it be a red flag. Okay. So the other thing you see is skipping meals. So you'll have a teenager who is probably skipping breakfast. They'll come home and tell you they ate lunch. You don't know because they were at school. Then when they come home, they eat very little at dinner. So they're skipping meals, or they are also restricting. They are not eating enough. And as a parent, a lot of times you may think, nothing of it. But if that continues, you want to be careful because, again, it might be starting the pattern of restricting. Okay, so you want to watch, make sure they are not skipping meals, because again, what happens at that age, that's when they need all the calories.
Yes.
So if they are restricting, then their brain doesn't develop as well as it should. So then when they are older, their brain they can't even actually, it's harder to recover from the eating disorder because the brain has already been affected by the time they are older. So it's critical.
I didn't think about that, how it affects the brain development.
It does, big time. And that's why you find, especially something like anorexia, there's something we call the starved brain, whereby the brain is so starved, it's not getting enough nutrients, so it doesn't actually develop to a normal size.
So, and the plasticity in it is probably significantly reduced.
It's significantly reduced. So by the time they reach an age where it's no longer developing, then they can't process information properly. They have all these distortions. So you try to talk to them to get across to them the message that, this is going to kill you, but they can't see it. They can't process it. So these cognitive distortions, actually, you start them, some other red flags you can see, is someone saying they think they're overweight when actually they're just normal weight. It's a red flag, things to watch out for. Okay. Another thing parents can watch out for is, are the kids or the teenager over-exercising? Because we think exercise is all good, but I can tell you I've had clients exercising for 5 hours every day.
My goodness.
So that's an addiction to exercise, but it's very much tied to eating disorder and body weight and body image. Wow. So watching for things like that is really, really critical.
And what about mood? What about mood? Because I'm thinking if your brain is not getting enough nutrients, it's gotta impact your mood.
Right. And again, eating disorder affects the whole family, really. It's a big stressor because you have the child that is not eating, you have the parents that is concerned, trying to make them eat, but trying to make them eat just makes it worse because they're not going to eat. Okay. So it can be it can bring a whole host of problems in the family. Mm-hmm. So something you mentioned is the mood. Okay. And again, because eating disorders are very much connected to depression and anxiety, you tend to see teenagers with eating disorders are also self-harming.
Yes.
Okay. So if you see any signs of self-harm, you want to look closer because eating disorder, again, something like anorexia is a form of self-harm. It's a form of depriving yourself.
Right.
So you want to watch out. Is a child isolated? That's depression. Are they really isolating? Are they eating in secret, taking their food and holding it? Sometimes you have parents who go into the bedroom and they find like 10 boxes of pizza, right? Hidden under the bed. So the child is actually so ashamed, or the young adult, they're ashamed of it. So they hold the food and hide it in their bedrooms. Other things to watch out for. Sometimes kids go to the bathroom and they take longer than normal. Sometimes they have the water running. So that gives you a clue. Probably they're purging, they're vomiting, they're throwing up all that food that they ate. But because they keep it such a secret, you have to be really watching to know some of these red flags.
I'm so glad you said that because there was a study that showed that in one a college dorm, they found that the plumbing kept getting backed up.
Yeah.
Because the students were purging so frequently.
Right. And right? That happens a lot. And sometimes it's like a fad. So you have teenagers at school who think it's fun. And they're talking, how do you stay skinny? How do you do this? We also have these kids who are in sports teams, like cheerleading. So they are required to maintain a certain body shape and body weight. And the only way some of them do that to keep up with the pressure is to purge. So that's it's amazing how common it is with teenagers.
And I think a lot of times we don't think about the damage that it does to our teeth and our gum structure and things like that. It's not just a matter of throwing up. It damages all the acid, damages everything coming out.
It does. It's actually one of the deadliest eating disorder too, because again, you're dehydrated because you're getting rid of the fluids. Your low electrolytes are off balance. So something like potassium just going off a very slight amount, just going off the normal level and cause a heart attack. So you fight heart attacks when people are engaging in bulimia. You fight the teeth from all that acid. So it's the heart from all that contraction. So again, it's a pretty deadly illness. Wow. And that's why we should take it seriously. And if you're concerned, talk to your pediatrician. If you have any concerns, talk to the pediatrician, because they should be able to actually monitor and talk to the kid and monitor if the child is not, it's a stage where they're supposed to be gaining and they're actually losing in adolescent puberty stage, then it raises a red flag. So having your eyes open can really help.
Wow, that is really critical information, because that's something that you don't really play with, right? But a lot of times it goes undiagnosed, unnoticed, because most of society is absorbed with maintaining a certain image physically.
Right. So it goes, again, as you said, it goes very undiagnosed for a lot of people. Now, the other thing we say is we don't want parents to blame themselves if they have a child who develops an eating disorder.
Right.
Because again, parents are not going to cause the eating disorder. There's already an underlying issue that is going on, and it's a mental illness, just like any other illness, depression, anxiety. It is actually a mental illness that's caused by multiple factors. So sometimes parents come in and they feel so guilty, like, did I say something? Did I do something? But actually, parents do not cause an eating disorder. And they need to know that. All we are saying is these things they can do to create more protection, to be a buffer, to keep them from developing an eating disorder.
Right. And we call that in our line of work protective factors.
Protective factors, right. And the parent is the strongest protective factor when it comes to
having a healthy relationship with your teenager. That is the best protective factor there is against eating disorders.
Right. Again, because they're a lot of times they're getting their self-esteem from you. So what you're saying about yourself, what you're saying about them, right, is actually building their self-esteem. So those positive messages are really, really critical. Teaching them, I call them either mindful eating or conscious eating, which is you're just honoring your hunger and your cues. Again, there's this controversy, is there bad food or good food? We teach all food can fit in a healthy diet, right? So, because the moment I label something a bad food, then I'm creating, chances are they're going to crave that food mostly.
Exactly.
A lot of times, whatever you restrict at home, once they go to college, that's what they want to eat all the time.
It's over.
It's over, right. So you want to create no good or bad food, but it's moderation. The key is moderation, but also the honoring of your fullness and your hunger. You are honoring your body. When you're full, you stop. When you're hungry, you eat. So your body is really knows what to do.
Yeah. And I think in honoring that, something that you said, it goes back to mindful eating, because if you're eating fast and you're eating on the run, you don't have time to really honor your fullness, because actually you're full way before you feel full.
Right. So there's this, we call it the 20-hour rule. So
Hmm.
it takes about 20 minutes before your brain and your stomach can communicate to let you know you're full. You need to stop. Okay. So that communication takes about 20 minutes. So if I'm eating really, really fast, by the time the communication happens, I've already overate.
Wow.
So eating slowly is key. Eating when you're not distracted, just focusing, mindfully eating without any distraction, not eating and watching TV or eating and driving, because again, that communication won't happen. And if it does, sometimes it's too late. I've already eaten a little bit over. So mindful, conscious eating, we want to teach our kids that. We want to have family meals, family conversations. Again, that's when you're building your child's self-esteem, because you're telling them they're important. You're creating this time just to do this. So you're trying to be a buffer against the society, everything. Look at the magazines. The definition of beauty is skinny and, but not everybody. A lot of those are photoshopped. They're not really real images. But
Right.
the teenagers don't know that. So,
And with the age of social media, people are not necessarily putting out bad pictures on social media, right?
right,
And so
right,
then that heightens the comparison that happens.
right.
And so that increase the distorted body images that we think. We look at somebody and like, oh my gosh, they're so this, they're so that, and I'm not.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, the comparison. So when they start comparing themselves, they feel like, I need to weigh this much. I need to lose weight and weigh this much. I need to be able to fit in this size of a dress. But again, it's celebrating the body diversity. We all come in different shapes. We come in different sizes. And the big question is, am I doing the best to take care of me? It
I
doesn't
love
mean
that.
right. It doesn't mean I'm complacent. Like, I don't care what happens,
Right.
but am I taking the best care of
Of
me?
me. That's
Okay.
good. That's good
Right.
stuff.
Right. Because this is a machine that helps us with everything. The way we take care of our cars. Am I taking care of me the best I know how? What am I feeding my body? Am I moving it? Am I exercising? And then what messages am I loving my body? Those
Mm.
positive messages are really key. Because again, if I have negative messages, I have depression, when it's emotional eating, it becomes a cycle.
It does. And
Yes.
the important thing, and one of the things that I love about the body, and I've experienced myself, is the body has this incredible capacity to heal itself if you do the right thing.
It does. It actually does. And even eating disorders, people recover.
Yes.
You
So there
can,
is hope.
there is hope. People do actually recover from it. So we see a lot of people who actually recover and then go back and start working with eating disorders. So the body actually knows what to do. And that is why we don't recommend restricting food or force feeding. Again, some parents, even from a young age, are force feeding the infants or the toddlers, finish
Right.
your food. Again, what you're teaching them is ignore your cues, your hunger and fullness cues. Okay. So the body really knows. If we really, really pay attention, the body will tell us when to eat and when to stop. It's just we have that inner clock if we just listen to it. But it takes training because we are not used to doing that. Yeah.
That's awesome. So Pastor Brunton has a question for us as we come to the top of the hour. He says, how do you counsel parents who have a different view of food? So what he's saying is, one parent wants to choose either items for the family while the other parent doesn't. So the parents are really divided, it seems, on what the family should be eating.
Okay. So in that case, there's usually the primary person who does the shopping, who does the cooking. But when I'm working with whether it's kids, a lot of times it's with kids, you have to bring in both parents. Because I have this all the time. It's like, oh, I'm trying to, a lot of times the mom will say, I'm trying to be healthy. But then they'll
Right.
say, oh, but the dad is buying all this junk food and there's nothing we can do about it, right? So it has to be a team approach. The two parents have to be on the same page. Are we going to go healthy or are we not? Again, it creates that division. It
Yes.
creates the stress because I've seen it where one person is saying, you're not going to tell me what to eat, right?
Yes.
So I'm going to buy this stuff. And then the parent wants to healthy stuff. So there's a lot of education that has to happen. Why why? Because again, one parent might feel like, why are you interfering with what I like to eat? I'm okay. I'm not worried about me. But they're not realizing the generational impact.
Yes.
They're not realizing that they are modeling to their kids.
And the stress from the parents' disagreement goes onto the kid, who's then like, that's my fault. They're fighting because of me, which brings out more of the eating disorder.
Right. It brings out actually more stress to the child and more comfort eating because again, there's this fight. And again, the message we are setting is food. It's always going to be a fight about food.
Yes.
We have no middle ground. That's the message we are setting. So if the key is both parents being on the same page, but it takes a lot of education. Why? Because people need to know the why before they actually do it. The example I like to really to have parents we do a genogram and we look at some of the chronic illnesses. They'll say, my grandparent, my dad, they all have, for example, had dialysis or they all had diabetes. So right there gives you a family history or pattern. And then you use that to tell the parent, if nothing changes, if you don't break the cycle, then do you want to pass this on to the next generation and the next generation? So somebody has to start up and break the cycle. Once you put it that way, a lot of them I want to be the hero that broke the cycle of unhealthy relationship with food.
Yes.
And taught the next generation a healthy relationship with food.
That's so true. That is so true. So Damaris, we are at the top of the hour and I mean, this has been really good information and I just want to thank our viewers for joining us. And would you tell the audience, where can they find you?
So I'm in private practice here in St. Louis, Missouri. We also do video counseling. Healingstreamscounseling.com is my website. That's where we have all the information. We have some blogs on there, but it's healingstreamscounseling.com.
Excellent. And when we're done, would you drop that link in the comment section so people can find you?
I will. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for being here and thank you for everybody who stayed with us and send your comments in. This is like and share. And if you're catching us on the replay, let us know that you enjoy this and share it out because this is a topic that's not talked about much, but we need to talk about it a whole lot more. Thank you, Damaris. I appreciate you. And once again, everybody, thank you for joining Teen Talk Live, where we transform the lives and minds of teens and those who love them. Join us next week for another interesting topic. Good night.
Thank you.